elevated figure. So as he tries to draw, she runs away, but he kind of being drawn back to her. And of course, at the end, do not touch me, for Caesar's I am. Caesar, Henry, there's the possibility to read that relationship into the poem, as many people have done. Of course, Wyatt's not going to say this directly, because Henry had the unfortunate habit of chopping people's heads off. So if anyone asked him, he'd just say, oh, it's just a translation from Petrarch about a deer. It's what Stephen Greenblatt calls deniability. So, Wyatt's structure. 3 quatrains of Rima Crociate followed by a couplet. ABBA, ABBA, CDDC, EE. This is the English sonnet form, now fully arrived, set in stone. It doesn't vary in the same way that the Italian form does. The couplet at the end of the English sonnet, because we haven't seen this in the Italian, possibly came from the French sonnet, which is invented around the same time. Wyatt was an ambassador. He went to France, he went to Italy, and travelled around. In the French form, you've got the couplet at the beginning of the sestet, but that's conjectural. What you do get is this kind of shift, whereas the volta usually becomes between the 8th and 9th line, because of the form of the English sonnet, ABBA, ABA, CDDC, EE, there's a volta or a second volta takes place before that final couplet. That's where the real turn, the real sting in the tail happens in the English sonnet, usually. He strips away Petrarch's imagery, as we've seen, because, of course, Wyatt is writing in the sort of Reformation period. People have often thought of it as a kind of Protestant poetics, although whether that's true or not is debatable. It's a harder voice than Petrarch's. It's more, you find in Wyatt's poetry a kind of resentment, often. Like, you haven't kept your half of the love bargain, and I'm not very happy about that. So it's less praise, sort of full of praise, really. And Wyatt, even though he's clearly altered the Italian form so much, his is often seen as the Petrarchan form, which is bizarre. So whilst it's the English sonnet, it's the Petrarchan form. Again, it seems strange, but to make it very clear, you'll think of this as the Italian form, Wyatt's form, and Shakespeare's as the English, even though this is still an English form. I know it's strange, but it's what we have to work with. Wyatt's poems first appear following his death in a collection called Songs and Sonnets by Tottle, which is a collection which features his poems and the poems of Henry Howard, the Earl of Surrey. Slender refers to it in The Merry Wives of Windsor. I had rather than 40 shillings I had my book of songs and sonnets here. If you wanted to chat someone up, you had your book of songs and sonnets. If you wanted someone to be impressed, that's what you do. If you remember the bit in Romeo and Juliet where Romeo starts going on about the moon and the stars, and Juliet goes, oh, shut up. Just be yourself. Because he's using the language of Petrarch. Especially if you look at the very opening, Romeo's opening words in Romeo and Juliet, he's using Petrarchan paradox. And what you happen when he sees his real angelic lady is that he progresses to a more honest love, I suppose. So, Henry Howard, Earl of Surrey. It's courtly aristocratic verse, because previously these were only available in manuscripts. Towards the end of the 15th century, however, printing came along. So, there's a shift in readership, in sort of demographic. So it's being made available to the great unwashed, or rather the great slightly grubby, slightly washed, because the poor people are still not going to get this. But the middle classes now became a readership, and they wanted, as the middle classes always wanted to impersonate the upper class. So they tried to get the same books, although they're not as nice as those big gilded manuscripts of the medieval period. So Wyatt, the first person to bring the sonnet, is quickly followed by Henry Howard, Earl of Surrey, standing there. Again, who does he resemble?
I think you're that.
He hasn't got the toga, but he's surrounded by classical arches and things there. And again, the beard, the hat, the slightly aggressive look. He's a Henrician courtier. He's from Henry VIII's gang, although Henry did him the honour of cutting his head off. So you see, he's also surrounded by this classical material because he's also the person who introduces English epic. He introduces blank verse to English, which is of course unrhymed, iambic pentameter. Let's have a look at him then, if we can. There we go. So, again, translating Petrarch, as one does. Love that liveth and reigneth in my thoughts, that built his seat within my captive breasts, clad in the arms wherein with me he fought, oft in my face doth his banner rest. But she that taught me love and suffer pain, my doubtful hope and ache my hot desire, with shamefaced cloak to shadow and restrain, her smiling grace converteth straight to ire. His smile and coward love, and to the heart apace taketh his flight, whereas he lurks, and plains his purpose lost, and dare not shew his face. For my lord's guilt does faultless bide, I pains, yet from my lord shall not my foot remove. Sweet is his death, that takes his end by love. It's a very clear, a clean poem, compared to Wyatt's more rough, slightly unmetrical verse. It's neat rhymes. And we can spot the rhyme scheme. Thought, breast, fought, rest. Pain, desire, restrain, ire. Pace, plunge, face, pains, remove, love. So, 3 quatrains of rima incatenate. ABAB, CDCD, EFEF, GG. Now, whereas Wyatt introduces the English form of the Petrarchan sonnet form, and so Wyatt is often seen to as being the person who writes Italian-style sonnets, Surrey, in fact, invents the English form proper. So, the Italian sonnet in English is ABBA, ABBA, CDDCEE. The English sonnet, ABAB, CDCD, EFEF, GG. Surrey invents the Shakespearean sonnet. So, which seems a bit unfair on Surrey, because everyone refers to it as the Shakespearean sonnet. But when Surrey had invented it, Shakespeare most likely hadn't even been born. But we call it Shakespearean sonnet because Shakespeare used it, and Shakespeare's a bigger name than Surrey. It's mostly end-stopped, there's little enjambment. In the Italian sort of poetry, you have a punto at the end of each line, it's full stop. The exception is the couplet, which runs on, which is enjambed. The effect is clarity of thought and expression. Again, there's that cleanness to it, and it lacks that resentment and the roughness of Wyatt. It also brings back in some of the imagery, so it flows much more in a much neater style. For centuries, Surrey gets the upper hand. People think that Surrey's poetry is better than Wyatt's because it's cleaner, because it's more neat. Whereas in more recent years, or rather in the past 50 years or so, Wyatt has sort of outdone Surrey because his seems a bit more attuned to the kind of poetry we like, I suppose. Sidney. Notice, no beard. The reason for this is he was a courtier under Queen Elizabeth. And Queen Elizabeth, as far as we know, did not have a full and luscious beard. And if she did, you wouldn't grow one in impersonation, because that would only draw attention to it. So, Sidney, the courtier, the perfect Renaissance man, or English Renaissance man. I'll speed this up. Astrophil and Stella, composed 1580s. This is the 1580s is when the sonnet boom happened. Everyone's writing sonnets. So, you that do search for every pearling spring, which from the ribs of old Parnassus flows, and every flower, not sweet perhaps, which grows near thereabouts, into your poesy ring. Yet that do dictionary's method bring into your rhymes, running and rattling rose. You that poor Petrarch's long deceased woes, with newborn sighs and denizen wit do sing, you take wrong ways. Those far-fetched helps be such as do bewray a want of inward touch. And sure at length stolen goods do come to light. But if, both for your love and skill, your name you seek to nurse at fullest breasts of fame, Stella behold, and men begin to indict. He refers here to Petrarch's long deceased woes. The Petrarchan style for Sidney now has gone on long enough. Petrarch died in 1374, he's writing in the 1580s, and people are still copying Petrarch. And he's saying, no, there's a new way of doing things, which is necessary now. It's Astrophil and Stella. Astrophil is a typo. It should be Astrophil, meaning star lover. It's also a pun on his name, Philip Sidney. Stella means star. So star lover and star is his sequence. And Stella is most likely a woman called Lady Penelope Rich, who was married, that Sidney was in love with. So Sidney's structure. Rima crociate. Sestet consisting of 2 tercets in this instance, with 2 rhyming couplets embedded. So CCD, EED. Again, the sestet can vary. Sidney writes in the more Italian style throughout his. But he varies his throughout, as everyone else does. We're getting used to that now. There's the emphasis on the volta, on the turn, in the usual place. And it's less end-stopped and more enjambed.